With us now to discuss, Sarah Marshall-Perry, former senior counsel at the U.S. Department of Education. Also with us, Angela Morabito, former press secretary at the Department of Education. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Sarah, you know, one report I just saw online stating that not a single student can read at grade level in 30 Illinois schools. Is Trump right about sending education back to the states? Because that's exactly what the dismantling of the DOE would do. It sends the power of educating our children back to the state, out of the federal government.
Initiated this process in 1979, which was ultimately enacted through congressional authority, and it's going to have to be fully dismantled through congressional authority. But when he did it, he lacked the constitutional authority to do so. Congress did as well. Education is distinctly a states' right issues. It always has been. It will continue to be. And in fact, the states only receive about 10% of their funding from the federal government. Now, it's significant in the grand scheme of how much is being spent through the Department of Education, but states themselves have sufficient money through through state and local taxpayer dollars to be able to fund the operation of their states. This is a very encouraging first step. It will be a long process. It will require congressional investment of time, energy, and resources, and we need 60 votes in the Senate to do so. But it certainly carries out exactly the same aim that President Reagan has been calling for since 1980, a year after the department itself was created.
Clearly, the department is failing our children. Instead of going up in the test scores, we're falling even further behind. Meantime, Angela, failed vice presidential candidate Minnesota Governor Tim Walz had this to say about Trump's decision.
Let's just name it what it is. The president has no idea how education works. He has no idea how these work. He has no idea how any of this works.
Angela, this is the governor of a state that recently dropped to 19th in the national education rankings under his leadership, and homeschooling in that state, in Minnesota, also continues to rise because parents, they're not happy with how their kids are being taught. So what do you think about Walz's criticism there?
It's absolutely ridiculous. Not only does President Trump know how education works, he knows that right now it's not working. That in states like Governor Walz's state of Minnesota, test scores are in the tank. Students are really struggling, and parents, when they have a way out of those failing government schools, take it right away. So today's executive order is the start of an incredible new era in American education. It's the end of this failing top-down system that has spent $3 trillion, and yet still we graduate kids who can't read the diplomas that they get handed at graduation. It's ridiculous, and I'm so relieved to see President Trump and Secretary McMahon taking this bold action to turn the tide and restore power over education to the states and ultimately to the parents.
4,000 employees, $80 billion wasted. Sarah, there are a few people that really get under my skin like this next person, teachers union head Randi Weingarten. She is now livid because the shutdown could obviously compromise her bottom line and, of course, her power hold. Take a listen.
It's like evisceration by 1,000 cuts. So you want to do this? Have the fight with us in Congress. Let's make sure we get the issues out there. I'm so mad. I'm spitting mad about this.
I don't blame her for being spitting mad because, look, she makes $435,000 a year, almost $500,000 a year to scream and yell. Meantime, teachers in the Bronx, my home county, they barely make $60,000. Kids are struggling. What do you think about Randi's criticism there?
Well, it is consistent with Randi's constant narrative in that she is more concerned about political ideology and about big government and bloated bureaucracy than she is about the education of children. Remember, she is the chief of the exact same teachers unions that voted down an increase in American childhood education as one of its aims. It did vote up, however, an initiative specifically supporting abortion on demand. So you tell me, when a teachers union wants to make sure that abortion is available on demand but doesn't feel as strongly about the education of American kids, it makes situations like what we have in Baltimore City, with 40% of high schools in Baltimore City at no proficiency whatsoever for grade level literacy. It's unconscionable. And what we know is that the teachers unions were given quite a bit of audience and quite a bit of specialized treatment by the past Department of Education, and that definitely stops now.
Angela, final 30 seconds to you for all the parents out there that say, oh my goodness, it's going to compromise my grandchildren's education, and what's going to happen?
I would tell them you have nothing to worry about and a whole lot to look forward to. President Trump said today at the White House that we're going to make sure that great teachers get rewarded. That's just one of the benefits that happens when we return education back to the states. He and Secretary McMahon have been incredibly consistent that civil rights law and education will continue to be upheld. Funding for students with disabilities will continue to flow to the states. Students who went to school today, are going to go to school tomorrow, they're going to notice no difference. But the education leaders in the states who are trying to improve things for students, they're about to have the freedom to make those changes that we've needed for a very long time.
Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. Here's to a brighter future for our children.
He loves the Constitution. He fights for what's right. He hates the bad guys. He's a freedom warrior. He's your freedom warrior. Watch Carl Higbie every weekday on Newsmax.